Every single pastor knows the pressure I'm about to describe. Last Sunday was incredible. The worship soared, the sermon just landed, the crowd was alive. And then Monday came, and the voice in your head began to whisper, how do we beat that? I mean, it is a subtle shift, isn't it? From celebrating what God did to stressing over how to recreate or to outdo ourselves. And before you know it, Sunday really feels less like a sacred gathering and more like a weekly performance review. I call that, and you know this phrase, it's the one-up pressure. And it is one of the most common, and I think one of the most dangerous pressures that pastors face. I mean, the problem with this one-up pressure approach, I mean, it's so painful, right? I mean, ministry begins to turn into a performance treadmill, and you feel like the speed on that treadmill is just getting faster and faster, and the incline's getting steeper and steeper. I mean, enough never really feels like enough. I mean, that pressure, it kind of creeps in, but not only from people, but from within, you know? And as pastors, I mean, I know this, right? As pastors, we crave impact, but unchecked, that desire can quietly morph into a craving for applause. The pressure, it really does breed exhaustion, doesn't it? Burnout, distraction from the true mission. I mean, you know, when I was a youth minister, I got to spend some time in youth group, leading youth. In fact, before, when I was in the marketplace, some of you know this, I worked in the marketplace for a decade before I got involved in professional Christianity and real ministry. But during that marketplace season, I got very involved in our local church. And I was even the lay pastor over middle school for a while. And our middle school program had about 25 kids in it, when I first began working in it, and not because of me, but it grew a lot. A few years later, we had about 150, if I remember, in there. And our community was growing. I mean, the whole church was growing. But I will say our middle school ministry was kind of outpacing all of that. And I think a lot of it was because of the plan and how intentional we were. We had Sunday morning small group, more experiences, a little more insider focus, but Wednesday night, that was our outreach experience. I mean, we did some of the craziest things on, Wednesday nights, and it was so much fun. It was so incredible. But here's the problem. When you have like a huge Wednesday night experience, it is awesome. But then Thursday, you start thinking, uh-oh, here comes Wednesday again. And what are we going to do? How are we going to one up what we just did? How are we going to make it bigger? How are we going to make it badder? How are we going to make it, not badder in a good way, I mean, it's hard, And what happens is like that, I mean, in fact, you know what? I used to do this sometimes. I would remember every once in a while, we would just do some like acoustic music and not a big band and all the things. Almost to reset everybody's mind. So that way, when we did have a really good band again, people were excited, not bored. Because you know what happens? Like, it's almost like, like people get, excited about stuff, but then eventually, it doesn't matter how exciting it is. If you go to Disney World every single day, eventually it just becomes, it's Disney, But you remember when you went the first time, I mean, it's the law of diminishing astonishment, really, And it really emphasizes how this cycle becomes unsustainable, like escalation, one-upping yourself. It's unsustainable. But there is good news, and this is what I want you to hear. God never asked us to outdo ourselves. Like he never asked us to jump on that exhausting treadmill. What God wants us to do is be faithful. I mean, excellence really matters. I'm a huge fan in doing things with excellence, but excellence isn't escalation. They're different. Like a great Sunday isn't defined, by the way, by whether we topped ourselves. A great Sunday is defined by whether people encountered Jesus. That's the definition of success. So sometimes that is pretty dramatic. Sometimes it's quiet. Both are equal because they both are wins. So let me just kind of ask the question, how do we relieve this pressure? I have had to work through this personally. So I'm going to give you kind of three things that really helped me get past the one-upmanship of leading a church. Here's the first one. You have to learn to plan with consistency, but not with competition, right? So we're not trying to compete against last week or, and please tell me you're not doing this, compete against the other church down the street, right? We want to plan with consistency, but not with competition. So we want to build rhythms that deliver steady quality, but we need to stop reinventing the wheel every 7 days too, right? Systems really help do that. Systems create freedom. So if we have really healthy systems in place, that is going to create consistency that allow the actual win to happen. And the win isn't competition. All right, number two, we really need to become great at celebrating, but without benchmarking that celebration as the new win, the new level. We can't do that, right? We need to thank God for what He did, by the way, not what we did. But don't let last week become the new baseline that defines success. I mean, the standard, as we've said, is faithfulness, not flashiness. So when we have just an incredible week from an applause standpoint, from a public standpoint, when it feels, amazing, celebrate it. But don't benchmark it as the new version of success. All right, number three. This is a hard one, but it really is learning to evaluate faithfulness, not applause. Like we have to ask questions like, did we create space for God? Did we point people to Jesus today? Did we serve with integrity? Like those questions, those are the questions that matter, not how many people applauded. Was there a standing ovation today for that song? Did people clap at the end of the sermon? I mean, all of that's fine, but none of that is the goal. Applause isn't the goal. Faithfulness is the goal. Really for me, as I kind of work with this ever-growing group of churches and pastors, like I see this pressure repeated over and over and over again. I see pastors who, are chasing bigger, but really what they're chasing is burnout. They don't know it yet, but that's where they're going to find themselves. The most successful churches understand the difference, though, between striving for excellence versus kind of striving for escalation. Those are two important juxtaposed statements. Successful churches, successful pastors, they understand the difference between working for excellence and striving for escalation. So, for you, how does that land? How does that sit? Do you feel like you're competing with yourself week after week? Maybe you're putting that pressure on yourself. Maybe you've allowed that pressure to become cultural. Are you exhausted by that pressure to one up last Sunday? What if you this week, what if you just gave yourself permission to step off of that treadmill? I'm not suggesting you ignore Sunday. You don't just mail it in. You plan with consistency. You celebrate last week, but you don't benchmark. You evaluate by faithfulness. Because the real scoreboard, as we've said, isn't applause. It's transformation. Your job isn't to outdo yourself. Your job is to point people every day, every week to Christ. And that's always more than enough. If you're kind of carrying this weight, well, first, you need to know you're not alone. Every pastor knows how you feel. I know how it feels because I have sat in your seat. I did for years and years and years. But you don't have to let it run you, okay? Faithfulness beats flashiness every single time. And that is what we're working for.